is good, it's your boy Sam back here with another video. And in this video today, guys, we're going to be going over and talking about the perfect build cards coming to NBA 2K24 MyTEAM tomorrow. What are my thoughts on them and how good I truly think each and every one of them are. Now, before we dive any further into that, remember the perfect build, the final lock-in is ultimately Kevin Durant. And I mean, KD, he's gonna be good. Is he gonna be worth the MT he goes for? That is another story. I can't even sit up here in front of you guys and make the case that KD is worth the ultimate price he's gonna be, because he is going to be ridiculously expensive. Like, I think when I calculated it, it was like $170 by the end of things. So I'm not gonna sit up here in front of you guys and make the case he's worth getting or grinding for, because in my opinion he's not. But we'll talk about all four of these cards as well as let's see. Okay, sometimes 2K talks about others, but these four cards coming tomorrow, so we'll see what each of them starts with. Now I'm gonna start off with David Thompson. This year David Thompson actually doesn't have a bad release. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and hype the card up, but I'm trying to be honest with you. This year, his release is not bad. The problem with David Thompson is he's only 6'4" at that shooting guard position. And that's kind of really the problem that I do have with him. I don't think he's horrible, right? I don't have a problem with him. But if you're only 6'4" at that shooting guard position, I just think it's tough. I think it's tough for me to sit here and kind of hype up the card in general. And he is a card that I do think has potential, especially, after I've shot around with him. I do not mind his release. I can't sit here and be any higher on him. I think the card's fine. I think you are going to see some people use him and just see what the card gets into. But from top to bottom, I just don't think he's going to be like a top shooting guard in the game, or even a card that's like worth his price, right? I mean, that's ultimately what matters in this whole thing. Are our cards worth their prices or not? And I just can't see David Thompson being worth his price in my team. So that's kind of where I'd start today with David Thompson. I, again, don't think the card is bad or anything. Is he worth the MT he's going for? That is a completely different story. Derrick Jones Jr. up next. I feel like Derrick Jones Jr. always has a really solid release. Now, that's just kind of my initial thoughts on him. I really do. I feel like when I've used him in the past, he always has a good release. This year, release-wise, not nearly as good. I'm shooting around with it right now, and it's fine, right? It's straight up and down, easy to time, relatively easy to green. But like, as I'm shooting with it, is it anything that I think is like the best release in the game? No. And that's kind of the problem I have with Derrick Jones Jr. is at the small forward, he needed that like best release in the game for him to be that next level good. Because otherwise, he's basically a cone. And is he going to be better defensively than, let's say, a guy like Robert Covington? No. And so that's kind of, again, the issue I do have with Derrick Jones Jr. is, I mean, again, I think he's fine, but I just don't see him being that next level good. Now, let's talk about Zach Lavine for a while, because as I see it right now, he's got one of the best releases in the entire game. Shooting guard Zach Lavine, he's going to be 6'5", right? His playmaking is going to be off the charts. And as far as a primary ball handler, he is going to be absolutely elite. To me, he's very similar to like a guy like what Devin Booker is going to give you. Maybe obviously not as good, as impactful as Devin Booker, because D-Book's fade is absolutely elite this year. But I mean, from when I look at things, with Zach Lavine, release is outstanding. Movement is really good this year. There's just not a lot of downsides that I personally see to Zach Lavine in general. Now that's just kind of my initial opinions on things as I've looked at these cards. But I do believe Zach Lavine might be the best card in this set overall. Now we'll see. Blake Griffin, obviously, I think is super intriguing, and we'll talk about him here in a second. But I mean, as far as like David Thompson, Derrick Jones Jr., those cards are they're fine. Are those cards, cards that I think have potential to be like game-breaking good? No. I think Zach Lavine has potential to be absolutely elite at the shooting guard position. Again, the one thing that really concerns me, I would say, with Zach Lavine has to be the defense. Zach Lavine cards always early on in my team struggle defensively, and this Zach Lavine is going to be no different. He is going to struggle on the defensive end of the court, but offensively, I think he's going to make up for it. And right now in my team, I will say, I think, again, this is my opinion, I think right now in my team, It's easy enough to hide players, right? And I'm not saying that, you know, you should have players that you have to hide, anything like that, but let's just be honest with ourselves, right? I mean, you can hide players with, you know, everybody running inside bigs, everybody running, let's say, even like a Robert Covington. Zach Lavine can go out there and guard Rocco. As much as I like Robert Covington, offensively, he's not much. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way the game is played right now. Now, the ultimate lock and reward is Blake Griffin, okay? And so again, if you complete this entire collection, you lock in for Blake Griffin. Now, is Blake Griffin gonna be worth the lock-in? My initial answer is no, okay? I can't see Blake Griffin being worth the lock-in. But with that being said, is he going to be good? Yes. I feel like early on, Blake Griffin is normally pretty good in my team. The big thing for me, though, with this is we are going to see more cards, right? So is David Thompson going to be free or Derrick Jones Jr. going to be free? I don't know. One of them will be. But we're going to see more cards. So there's going to be 5 cards in this set. And then obviously the lock in Blake Griffin. Now, again, Blake Griffin offensively, in my opinion, as far as at the center position or even power forward, let's talk about both. Power forward position, I think might be his best position. For me, why? Okay? Because if you match up against Shaq, if you match up against Chris Bosh, honestly, guys, even if you match up against AD, I feel like Blake Griffin is going to struggle quite a bit to just get you to get you stops, right? Offensively, I got no issue with Blake Griffin. I think offensively speaking, the card is going to be absolutely outstanding. Now again, that's my personal opinion. You guys can have your own opinion, but that's my personal opinion as I'm talking about these things. Offensively, he's got a good release. He's gonna dunk on everybody. He's probably gonna have decent dribbling as well. It's just, for me, the one thing that really does concern me is that defensive end of the court, right? How good is he going to be when he's up against some of the other best bigs in my team? And even for me, furthermore, on that same kind of train of thought, right? Is he going to be to the level of AD? Is he going to be to the level of Chris Bosh? I personally think no. And because I think no, that's why I think it's hard to make the case that Blake Griffin's even worth locking in for. Again, if you guys want to lock in for Blake Griffin, ultimately do what you guys got to do. I'm not going to be the one to sit up here and convince you to not. But at the end of the day, nobody in this set's worth locking in for. I don't even think any of these cards that we see today, any of these 4 cards, or 3 cards, right, and then the lock-in for Blake, are worth buying. Now, is Zach Lavine fine? Can you use and have success with Zach Lavine? Absolutely. I'm not sitting up here in front of you guys saying, like, Zach Lavine is absolutely horrible, because that's just not ultimately the case. But is Zach Lavine, in my opinion, is he worth the MT he's going to be? No, he's going to be like 133, 140,000 MT, and for that, I simply can't make the case that he is worth it. So, out of all these cards, I do think Zach Lavine, Blake Griffin are going to be solid. I'm honestly hoping Derrick Jones Jr. is free, and we can see his stats tomorrow. And then we will get 2 Sapphires as well, one of them free. I just got to hope budget cards are good. I mean, this season, late in the season, 2K's been doing a good job giving us budget cards. So I'm hoping diving in, heading into tomorrow, that it is no different. That's going to wrap it up for our video today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. And as always, man, I love you guys. And have a blessed day.